Today on Rambling About Cars, Kia reveals the EV9, sort of. Lamborghini reveals more on its new hypercar, sort of. Mercedes does tell us all about the GLC Coupe. There's a VW ID.2 concept. There's a Chevy and a Ford that are used to block water. There's last call Dodge stuff. There's all kinds of stuff. So let's roll. It's podcast time. I am Christopher Smith, and Mr. Chris Bruce is always across the way. How you doing, man?
I'm right here, and it's fun because this is our last recorded episode. Our last episode that we are recording and then posting, not our last recorded
That's
episode.
Right.
But after this, you and I are live. So
we might record more in the future. I suppose it would depend on the environment, depends on the guest.
Yeah, but it's not going to be the norm, certainly.
Right.
I think it's kind of the way going forward. So, but
we are
next
going
week,
live.
March 22nd, you will be able to join Rambling About Cars live. You will be able to. We'll be able to see your comments live, and tell us what you think, and tell us that we have bad opinions, and all sorts of fun stuff like that. So,
and that makes you ramblers part of the show. That makes you part of the hosts, part of the guests, part of the whole enchilada.
And this just jumped to my mind, and I'm not sure if we made a big deal about it. So we will be on the Motor One Com YouTube channel.
Yep, we were talking about that last week.
Okay, yeah. So don't go to Motor One Podcasts because you will not see the stream there.
Right.
Unless maybe we can work. We might be able to work something out with Kyle to make that happen. But
I think for the first one at least, it's handled on Motor One Com on YouTube. So maybe you're sitting there asking, I know you guys have been talking about this. How can I be involved? How can I be involved in this? I want to make sure I'm involved in this. It's March 22nd. We record at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Yes, we're on daylight time now, and my body is still trying to get back the hour that was yanked mercilessly from my heart. I have strong opinions on that, but I digress. How can you participate in Rambling About Cars live? Follow Motor One Com, Motor One Com's social on Facebook. Follow on Twitter. And you can go Motor One Com on YouTube, not Motor One Podcasts, Motor One Com on YouTube. If you're watching on Facebook, it will stream live on Facebook, Motor One Com on Facebook. It will stream live on Twitter, Motor One Com on Twitter. All you need to do is follow. And when you see the post up there in the video, you can bloop, 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 type in your comments wherever you're at, Facebook or Twitter. They show up to us through our program that we use in real time. We can respond to you in real time. The whole thing is real time. That goes for YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Motor One Com. We want to see you there. We are super excited about going live. We've talked about this for like since episode 3. It feels
yeah, that's true. It has been brought up since then, but yeah, we've been teasing it now for.
It's been brought up for a while.
6 weeks, something like that.
Yep. So that's how you can do it. It's next week, March 22nd, 7:30 p.m. Follow Motor One on Facebook, Motor One Com. Follow Motor One on Twitter, Motor One Com. Follow Motor One on YouTube, Motor One Com. And you can catch us live. And if you're like, I don't care about any of that live crap, I just want to listen to you guys on Friday when I'm coming home from work so I can de-stress and not road rage against people. Awesome. We're there for you too. We'll still be on the same audio streaming platforms that we've always been on. That's not going to change. That'll go up on Friday. We'll still go up Friday on Motor One Podcasts if you want to watch us Friday evening instead of your favorite Friday night show, or if you're not going out to the club or whatever. You don't want to go to the club. You want to listen to Bruce and Smith.
Sure you do. But without further ado, I think we should get into the cars this week.
We should probably talk about some stuff this week. And there's been a little bit going on. There's been a little bit going on. So we're going to start with something brand new from Volkswagen. Yep. I won't say it came out of the blue because we had a little bit of a heads up on it, but there is a new Volkswagen for Europe. I want to stress that this is going to be for Europe, and it's not going to be until 2025. This is the VW ID.2all concept. And it's a concept EV. I want to stress right now, it is a concept, but for a concept, Bruce, we got an awful lot of information for this being a concept.
It looks like a very production ready concept. I think that's fair. to
Yeah,
say.
I think that's fair to say. We don't know exactly what might change, but Volkswagen, they're billing this as being spacious as a Golf, affordable as a Polo, and it's an EV, and it's supposed to be under 25,000 euro. Right now, that translates to about 26,000 in US currency if it was coming to the US, which we know it's not. Do you have some information in front of you there, Bruce, to tell us a little bit about it?
You knocked out some of the big stuff, but let me
Mhm.
get some of the smaller details in. So at least in concept form, and again, we keep repeating that this is a concept, so things can change. It makes 222 horsepower. Predicted acceleration to 62 miles per hour is less than 7 seconds, so it's pretty speedy. Like
Mhm.
I think I don't know that a first gen VW GTI would hit 60 in 7 seconds. Not granted that was in the very, very late
I
70s,
can
early 80s,
I
but
mean, I can tell you
still,
a second gen GTI wouldn't do it in that quick time.
yeah.
My
Top
my
speed
Mark
here
II
is
was like like 8.5 or 9 or something. They weren't really that fast, but they were go-karts. So woo. Anyways.
right. Top speed is limited to 99 miles per hour, which is plenty for any normal person.
Mhm.
Even in Europe, people talk about the Autobahn and stuff. Most of the Autobahn is actually restricted if you look at it.
Mhm.
So 99 miles per hour is plenty. And they're predicting 450 kilometer, that works out to just shy of 280-mile range. That is in the WLTP test, which we know tends unfortunately, different parts of the world test EVs different
Mhm.
ways, so they come up with different range numbers. The EPA test, generally, you would get a slightly smaller range figure than WLTP.
Right.
So, if they say 280 miles, it's going to be if the EPA tests it, which again, it's not coming to the US, they're not, blah, blah, blah. But it would be slightly less than that 280 miles.
Right. And it's worth mentioning too. I mean, this is a concept that's an estimated figure at this point.
Of course.
But still, Bruce, we're talking about a concept here, and they're telling us. I mean, it's the single motor, 222 horsepower. They're giving us estimates for 0 to 60. They're giving us range estimates. I mean, they even tell us the size. They break it
Mhm.
down. Um, it's 159.4 inches long, 71.3 inches wide, 60.2 inches tall. They talk about the space inside. It's got 17.3 to 46.9 cubic feet of cargo capacity. That'll be with the seat up, with the seat down. Just for fun, I did a little bit of comparison before the podcast began, and the current VW Golf, currently it has a cargo capacity 19.9 cubic feet behind the rear seat. So this is a little bit smaller cargo wise than the Golf, but here's where it gets interesting. 46.9 cubic feet of cargo capacity. Presumably that's with the rear seats folded. The
Right.
Golf is 34.5.
Okay.
So
So
with the seats folded, you're getting a fair amount of space. That could be due to the EV powertrain, just having a flatter floor. I don't know that for sure, but I found that pretty interesting.
Well, I mean, if you're watching on YouTube with the images that we're looking at here, you can see the bottom is essentially all battery, and they've
Yep.
kind of just shoved the electric motors and inverters and stuff kind of every place you would expect a combustion engine to be. You could almost be fooled by some of these pictures, thinking that, oh, it just got an engine up front that drives the front wheels like a VW Golf would, but no, it's all EV. But what that
Mhm.
does is it gives you that completely flat load floor. There's no
Yep.
exhaust to worry about. There's nothing. Once you get that packaging up front done, everything else behind it can be as minimalist as possible.
Right.
One other thing that they're doing on the concept, I know we're talking specs and stuff like that, but
Mhm.
let's have fun for a second.
Sure.
Is that they have the ability to tweak the screens to have an old school setup. So we're looking at this image here, and it is clearly based on early VW Golf
That's
appearances.
yep.
And then not only that, but for the infotainment screen, you can have it look like there is a cassette
A
tape
cassette.
playing, and they've got
That's pretty
like
cool.
little like decals, I guess you would call them, of the Wolfsburg logo. and cute little stuff like that. The pedals have play and pause symbols on them. It's
I
cute.
hope some of that carries over to production.
Agreed.
I
Agreed.
mean, especially the instrument cluster, the digital instrument cluster. Do we have the size on those? I think, yeah, they gave us the size even.
They did,
12.9
yeah.
inch touchscreen there for the center. Then there's another little digital display for the driver.
Yeah, we don't
That
have the
brings
size.
back a
It's
lot of
smaller, but it's not. It's
right,
clearly still quite wide. It's
right.
kind of a rectangular.
And those
Display.
retro gauges, man, that does. I mean, I had a Mark II GTI, just as a winter car for a few months, but I kind of fell in love with the thing, and I suppose if I ever found a really nice one, I might consider it again.
Mhm.
That's, I mean, that looks like the gauges that I had.
Yeah.
You got the little lights right in the middle, the little clock right in the middle, along with the gauge sweep. Yeah, that's a neat little touch.
And again,
Whether
that is something that is optional from what the driver wants. Like we also have
Mhm.
images of a much more kind of high
A
tech,
modern,
functional kind of appearance. So
yep,
if you don't have any nostalgia for old Volkswagen Golfs and you don't want it to look like that, it doesn't have to look like that. It can
right.
look, have a much more, you know, modern, I guess, for lack of a better word, appearance.
And former Motor1.com video guru Clint Simone, if you're listening, and you better darn well be listening here since you've gone on to bigger things. VW tells us that there is a little thumb wheel for the volume control, because they've, I guess, received just so much bad feedback on the GTI's volume setup, where people are constantly knocking into it and changing things when they don't mean to change it. And I remember Clint was rather vocal about that from time to time. So that's a little
Hmm.
feature here that they specifically call out on the concept. Presumably it'll go that way into production. I mean, hey,
Sure.
let's make things a little bit easier for the concept and then make it tougher for production. I don't think that would happen.
No,
But yeah,
I agree.
coming for 2025. And
Yeah, we're not going to get it here, but
mhm.
it's one of those things where I would elements of this are going to come here. We're not going to get this whole vehicle, but I would be shocked if some of like the screen setup or some of the ideas around packaging or things like that don't end up in a vehicle that comes to the United States.
Right. And whether it's called the VW ID.2all, I don't know.
I don't think you need to
Um,
say the dot. I don't think it's like a web. I think it's
well,
the
well,
ID.2all.
yeah, but I mean, I'm just reading like it's in front of me, Bruce. Come on.
Okay.
We know ID.4, ID.buzz. No, you won't say the dot, but the ID2 all. I mean, this could just be the ID2. That part at least wasn't entirely clear. But we've got a couple years to get it all sussed out. Coming to Europe 2025, and beyond that, we'll just have to wait and see.
Right. Yeah, I wonder how long VW sticks with that ID numeral naming idea because they've already kind of broken it with the ID Buzz, but they already have
Mhm.
the ID3, ID4. I wonder if at some point they don't go back to proper names for these vehicles.
Well, I mean, that's an interesting point that you make there, because right now automakers are just in love with giving jazzy electric themed names to their electric vehicles, right?
Mhm.
And that's not going to age well. I mean, can you imagine, looking back, 30 years from now, or from 30 years, where okay, all pretty much all cars are electric now. Why were they so fascinated with calling them electric bloody blah blah blah? Right back in the beginning. I don't know.
I think I
Maybe it's just my
disagree with
grumpy
that
face coming
actually.
through.
I think I disagree with it because I think right now it is important to tell people that I have a Blazer EV rather than a Blazer or something or a Mustang Mach E. That to have the Mach E name on there means something.
Yeah, well,
Um,
maybe. I mean, I guess I think back to like the 50s when the Jet Age was coming out. How many things back then had turbo or jet or something in their name, right?
I mean,
I
there was
mean,
Oldsmobile
it wasn't
Jetfire is the first one that comes to mind,
yeah.
but yeah,
I mean, it wasn't that that technology was going into cars. It was just, hey, we're in the jet age now, so we're going to call everything, jets, and we're going to design like turbine blade design elements on cars. I don't know.
Here's what we're rambling, which is fine. But here's what I thought you meant is that the alphanumeric EVs, if that is going to age well. And the two that I think of immediately, well, three I think of immediately are the Polestar 1, 2, 3, 4. Like, I wonder if that ages well, because at some point you end up with a second generation Polestar 2, and I just wonder if that means anything to people. Toyota with their nomenclature, BZ4X, which you and I have talked about it sounds like a Star Wars droid.
Yeah.
And we know they already have the BZ3 in China, so we know they're sticking by that nomenclature for a while. And then the VWs, the ID.2, the ID.3, the ID.4. But even then, they're hedging their bets with the ID Buzz. So I wonder how long we end up with automakers putting a separate name for their EVs rather than what seems like the American automakers have been doing, which is kind of giving them their own, adding EV to the end of things.
Yeah. Maybe that's a debate for a bigger show or another time.
Yeah.
It just kind of struck me here as we're talking about the ID.2. Are these names really going to age well? You make a great point with Polestar. So it's like, okay, 7. What happens when they get to? Well, I guess you could have the Polestar 10, the Polestar 11.
Yeah,
the Polestar 12. But... I mean, instead of a next generation Polestar 1, it's just okay. We're at 11, so I guess we start over, right? I don't know
why you have to start over at 11. You just I guess you just keep going. But it's funny that we're talking about this because the next vehicle we are going to discuss, the brand is also doing this with their EVs. So perfect segue. We saw the Kia EV9 this week.
Debuted, sort of.
Yeah. It was a design debut and not a powertrain debut. And you and I have discussed these before. This is something that Hyundai and Kia likes to do, where they'll show you everything about the design, and then month, 6 weeks, something like that later, they'll tell you everything about the powertrain.
Yeah, they break it up. I'm sure if you go back to a handful of former podcasts, you'll hear me ranting about it. So I won't rant about it here. I'll just point out the very, very hilarious dichotomy that we got a ton of information from a concept car, and now we have a production car where we're just able to look at it. So take that as you will. But Kia EV9 design is debuted. We've seen the outside, we've seen the interior. Motor One's managing editor Brandon Turkus actually went to South Korea to see this in person. And his takeaway was that it's the electric Telluride.
Which it does look a lot like the Telluride.
And it really does. There are a lot of Telluride themes going on here, just kind of that big blocky stature. One of the phrases that Brandon used that I'm going to share here, because I thought it was a very interesting description. Some of the differences between the EV9 production and the concept, the wheel wells are a little bit bigger, they're a little bit more pronounced. He called them intensely geometric, and he's not wrong. Yeah, he's not wrong. I mean, you think of a wheel well or wheel arch, there's usually an arch there, and I mean on the bottom side there is, but the way they trim it, I mean that the wheel arch extends well up into the fenders, and while it's a nice arch down low for the wheel and tire to fit in, obviously up top it is geometric. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sided. So, and I guess when you think about it, when you look at EV9 as a whole, it's a very geometric vehicle. There are a lot of just sharp edges, sharp corners. He described the belt line, and it's absolutely correct. That's just the flattest belt line you're ever going to find until you get past the rear door. And then it just shoots up at an angle. I mean, it's not like all rulers like the Cybertruck.
Right, but it's in that vein. As we were talking, we don't see a lot of like super angular EVs, but
Mhm.
there's the Cybertruck, and if it ever actually happens, there's the Vision 74 or 76, the cool
Yep,
Hyundai we
yep,
were talking about
yep,
recently,
the Envision
74.
74. Yep.
Yeah,
Um, One thing that this doesn't have from the concept had the rear opening doors, the backward opening doors. This has more conventional doors, but
those never come to production. They put them on every
no,
concept, and they
well,
never come to production.
well, and I think one of the reasons why, and I don't know this for sure. I can't remember if there was legislation that popped up somewhere or not. If you have a door that opens backwards and you accidentally open that door while you're traveling, what's going to happen to anyone holding on to that door? I mean, the wind is going to catch it and just going to yank it right open.
Sure.
And there's, I mean, there's at least a risk of damaging the vehicle or the door if it comes open. And if somebody is holding on to it, not realizing or thinking about it, and they're stuck on that door,
I
conceivably they
suppose.
could be pulled up. I can't remember if there was legislation at some point in the past on that or not. But when
I
you have a
mean, what
door that opens conventionally, aerodynamics will try to push it shut for you, which I mean, it's not as easy for getting in and out of, when you have a rear opening door like that. Um, but I mean, from just a safety standpoint, it makes sense to just have them open conventionally, especially on a vehicle like this that would be built as a family vehicle.
sure.
Uh, but that's boring. Who cares about that? What I care about, the second row seats, and this is a 3-row electric SUV. The second row seats can swivel 180 degrees, so
Hmm.
the people in the second row can face the people in the third row.
And most interesting,
And
you can also, I think they pivot. There's like an indent for 90
yep,
degrees, so it's easier to get in and out as well, because that way you're just
yes,
facing the exit portion or entrance portion of the door. So people with mobility issues, this thing would be a godsend.
yes, and I think that's one of those why didn't somebody think of that, sooner than now kind of moments.
I
Um,
mean, there were doors like that in what, the 50s and 60s on cars. I think the issue has always been getting it so that they don't come loose. And, maybe
you,
Kia
you
figured out some sort of new solution to that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember those vehicles specifically. If you do, Ramblers, email us podcast@motor1.com and send pictures because I want to see it. I think that's just I think that's a really neat feature in this vehicle. Um, Aside from that, I mean, again, this is just a design debut, so we would love to tell you about powertrain and all of that sort of thing, but none of that information is available. We do know it has two 12.3-inch digital displays up front. They're combined under, just a single pane, so you have kind of that glass cockpit look. It does come with a regular steering wheel. If you remember, the concept had a yoke. So it has that regular steering wheel. Um, as far as the design, I mean, it's very close to the concept, which we we don't really see that much. I want to say I think we're seeing it maybe a little bit more with Hyundai and Kia with some of their concept to production vehicles. Maybe they're a little bit more willing to make that leap. But I mean, the headlights are a little bit different. They're a little bit bigger. And while this is edgy, it's definitely edgy. It's not as edgy as the EV9 concept was. So there has been
Right.
a little bit of softening for production.
Hmm.
And we should
Yeah.
know more about this. Kia says more information coming later on, supposedly by the end of the month. So maybe just in a couple of weeks we'll have the full enchilada on this edgy Kia.
And here, real quick, just to show you, I believe this is from what the image was saying. This is a 59 Chrysler, but
Oh, Bruce, you're doing stuff behind. You doing extra credit here, man.
for the folks watching, swivel and seat.
Just a swiveling seat up front. Yeah, that's. I mean, it's okay.
So not a new
I
idea, but a new application of it. Like I
I
have no problem with it at all because my wife and I are helping to take care of my mother-in-law, and she has mobility issues. So being able to turn the seat 90 degrees and having it be easier for her to get in and out would be
just
great.
walk up, sit down.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, and the fact that you can turn it around in the back, and
also, yeah, you can go 180 degrees too, but we've seen
Yeah.
that before in vans and things like that.
Mhm.
We write about a lot of motorhomes where one of the things that they often do is they have it so the driver and passenger seat can swivel 180 degrees and then, have like a table or something there. So,
Mhm.
there have been applications of this idea before, but I think doing it more is generally a good idea for the right type of vehicle.
Right, just not something on this I guess smaller of a scale.
Sure.
And hey, we'll see if it's picked up by other automakers. Now let's jump over to something completely different, but
Yeah.
also something that we still don't have full information on. We're
Right.
getting
So
bits and pieces from Lamborghini on the LB744. That's the successor to the Aventador hypercar. They have now shown us basically the carbon fiber chassis that's going to be underneath everything, right?
yep. I apologize. I'm getting some pictures pulled up here. Yeah.
Oh,
So
okay.
what was it? Just last week we were talking about the engine. Was it that
We-
recently?
I believe it was last week they debuted
Yeah.
the engine. Well, they debuted the powertrain because, of course, as we know, this is
Right.
now a hybrid vehicle.
Right. It is a
but
plug-in hybrid, in fact.
Right, but in this instance, hybrid is not used for efficiency; it's used
Correct.
for power. And you should go back, Ramblers, if you missed that podcast, because that was a really good podcast. They're all really good, but I thought that one was particularly good.
But
We have images now that show basically how that engine and the frame underneath, how the carbon fiber monocoque sits all around it.
So just refresher. So you've got the V12 located in the back. It's still naturally aspirated.
Mhm.
There is an electric motor located between the engine and the transmission. So you've got one electric motor powering the back plus the V12. And then up front, you have two more electric motors powering each of those wheels. And
Mhm.
then you can see it here in some of the photos. The battery is lives in the central tunnel. So kind of, that's not a transmission tunnel for a drive shaft or anything like that. That is the battery's house.
And for the Lamborghini history buffs, that means the engine is now rotated 180 degrees from how it's been forever.
Mhm.
And the transmission is now on the backside versus in front of the engine going up, extending up into the interior. That's where the battery is. The engine revs to 9,500 RPM, makes 813 horsepower, all on its own. With the electric assist, it's 1,000 horsepower. We were talking last week. It's like, oh, it's the end of the V12 era. It's the end of the V12 only era. And then, Lamborghini comes out with stats like that. It's like, yeah, I don't think anybody cares that there's going to be some electric power in there. That's going to be a crazy engine.
So some specs about the monocoque, and then
Yes.
I want to point out one other thing. So it is, let me get my numbers right here. So it weighs 10% than the outgoing for the Aventador and has a 25% improvement in torsional rigidity. The main portion of the monocoque is carbon fiber, but there is a high strength aluminum subframe at the back for holding the engine and the shock towers.
And they make it a point to mention that the front section is also carbon fiber, from what I understand in the crumple zones, and I would like to understand that a little bit better, or if not the crumple zones, at least up front for some of the key supports. Because they were saying it's kind of a first in this field. I mean, I'm not an engineer. I don't understand the specifics of how various materials crumple and break down, but I always thought carbon fiber was kind of, I mean, it was, it was holding on until the end, and then it would just kind of fracture. It wouldn't really crumple. So
Right, yeah, my impression was that it shattered more than it crumpled, but
yeah. So I mean, I'd like I just like to know a little bit more about that. If there's any engineering listeners out there, you can email us.
Totally. But I think one other thing that's worth pointing out, and especially in this image in profile that I'm going to show here, is that you can get a pretty strong idea of what this is going to look like. Like you can
Wow.
clearly see where, the rear deck's going to be, what the
Mhm.
roof looks like. You can see from where that front portion of that subframe is, where the nose is going to end. You can get an idea where the tail's going to end. Like, Lamborghini didn't debut the car, but if you have even a decent imagination, you can kind of put that to work and know
Yeah,
get a good clue as to what's coming.
we're getting there. And if your imagination is just struggling a little bit as of late, because let's face it, it's been a fairly long winter for a lot of people. Maybe you're just feeling the doldrums and you're just like, just give me Doritos and ice cream. That's all I care about right now. Um, That's fine, by the way. If that's what makes you feel better, go for it. But you can also go to motor1.com and type up Lamborghini. We actually had a rendering created of what we think this new Lamborghini is going to look like, and I think it looks well. It's a Lamborghini. Okay,
Sure.
it's going to be pretty wild. It's going to have big scoops. Uh, in fact, I love that they call this their monocoque here the mono fuselage
Hmm.
because it's aeronautically inspired and it's like there is no airplane that looks like that. But I mean, once you get the scoops and the wings and everything on there, hey, Lamborghini, we love you.
Yeah. Um. Yeah. I was thinking the same. Mono fuselage feels like we were talking about that jet age kind of marketing. It feels like something straight out of the '60s. Like you could see Ford or Chevy in a brochure for a 1962 XYZ saying, with the new mono fuselage, you glide down the road like never before, or something like
Mhm.
that. Um, but
Could very well be. Now, Lamborghini, they have said we're supposed to see the whole thing by the end of the first quarter, which
it's
is
the end of the month,
is the
right?
end of this month. So,
Yeah.
in theory, in a couple weeks. And I mean, we've
Right.
already seen the engine. We've already seen
We've now seen the
the chassis
monocoque.
here. So
So they're unless
I mean,
maybe they do like an interior teaser,
I mean that's what I'm
but like
thinking,
there's not much left to show at this point.
right? I mean, here's the interior. Okay, now here's a look at the spare tire. Here's a look at one of the doors. Um, but I mean, hey, when it all comes together, it'll come together here, and hopefully that happens by the end of March. And of course, we'll bring it all right here in Rambling About Cars.
Hmm. And you and I still won't be able to afford it. So
Nope,
what difference does it make?
nope. But hey, we can talk about it.
Exactly. And speaking of cars where it seems like there's nothing left to tease, let's talk about the latest teaser for the Dodge Last Call. This thing finally debuts March 20th, and it can't come soon enough because I'm tired of this teaser campaign.
Oh,
They're
don't be that way, Bruce.
they're cute in their own way, like with the leprechaun and with whatever the monster leprechaun
There's a little bit of a
is.
secret here that I'm going to spill to people.
Okay,
Bru-
I don't know that I know.
Bruce
Tell me,
kind of
because
knows more about this car than the rest of us. So he
yeah,
has to be
but
he
I
has to be
can't
very
say
careful
anything.
talking about it. He can't say anything. And he
Right.
hasn't said anything to me yet either. So maybe that's why he's a little bit tired of it.
You know what? That
Um,
could be fair
it,
because
it could be because I'm still kind of enjoying trying to suss it all out. And Bruce, to your credit, you've been very good at not offering any spoilers, any hints. And this latest teaser, it's a video of the monstrous leprechaun wielding a V8 powered jackhammer that shows 2,538 psi of something.
something.
Something. We have no idea what it is. I have no idea what it is. Bruce might. I don't know. He's very good at keeping secrets like that. But yeah, okay. What does this mean? Does it have 2,538 pounds of boost? No.
No, it does not.
Does it have 25 pounds, 25.38 pounds of boost? I mean that's a fairly reasonable assumption, except they don't tell us 25.38 psi. They say 2,538 psi. Um, You look around on some of the social media posts, some people are talking about like fuel pressures and air pressures and cylinder pressures and all kinds of weird stuff that honestly, I know a fair amount about cars. I don't get anywhere near that deep into the weeds. I don't know if an automaker would get that deep into the weeds, but based on the teasers we've seen so far that have like all kinds of numbers and equations, yeah, it's hard to say. It's safe to say this is going to be a powerful vehicle.
Yes, that yes.
I'm trying to get hints out of Bruce, and he's just man, you're just like stone cold here, man.
I'll tell you the one I still have absolutely no idea about, and this is totally true. I still don't know what the 7.1 pounds teaser is, where it was the little leprechaun and the big leprechaun and 7.1 pounds. Still zero clue on that.
Yeah,
I don't know what they were trying to tell us there.
I mean, we theorized everything from okay, it's going to have a lot more power, but it's 7.1 pounds. Well, first of all, okay, we've got the little leprechaun and the big leprechaun. Where the hell does leprechaun come from? Nobody knows. Okay, we have the Dodge Charger, the Dodge Challenger Hellcat, and then we have the Hellcat Demon. Are we going to have a Hellcat Leprechaun now? It's like, yeah. This is definitely one of the weirdest teaser campaigns we've seen.
Definitely.
Don't know where it's going other than to say,
well, we know there's one more teaser coming on March 17th, and then the debut is the 20th. So we only got to sit through there's only one more teaser, and then we get to see it. So,
and I mean, if we want to go back over old rumors, there was a report last year that was claiming to be leaked information that the final Dodge Challenger with the big Hemi was going to be the last call model running on E85, tuned to run on E85, making over 900 horsepower, I think 909 horsepower. So, I mean, the first teaser where we saw this little creepy leprechaun with the red eyes, I was like, okay, is it a demony faced red eye leprechaun?
Right, at the time,
what is it?
That first teaser, you could not tell that was a leprechaun, and so demon and red eyes seemed like the obvious thing. And then they revealed it was actually a leprechaun in the next one. So,
and then the leprechaun got this IV of golden fluid, which is theorized to be E85, and now it's super monster leprechaun that can blow into an anemometer at 1,582 something and weighs 7.1 pounds more than something. So yeah, lots of numbers, but hey, you know what? It's a mystery. And I know there are a lot of people that like to try to solve mysteries. I'm one of them sometimes. And this time I'm along for the ride. It's not getting to me. It's not yanking me in a bad way here. It's not getting me upset. It's like, okay, now I got to think about this. Now I got to noodle this out. You know, what are some other people smarter than me on forums and social media saying? And yeah, but yeah, that's the latest teaser that just came out. Every time one of these teasers comes out, to Dodge's credit, they're getting attention. I mean, we're seeing it just on our side through Motor One, through the people that are coming to see the article, to see what it's all about. And it's at least not being stretched out. Well, wait, actually, it has been stretched out because this car was supposed to debut last October, the end of October at SEMA.
Yeah.
And it was delayed.
Right.
But they have been doing a teaser campaign that whole time. The teaser campaign's only now, I think, in its third.
Well, they teased it. They showed it under a sheet with that. What was it? One Fast 29.
I forgot. Yeah, that's technically the first teaser.
Right.
Way back, I think in August, when they announced all the new last call lineup. They had 7 different vehicles, 7 different special editions that they were going to be called the last call models, and this was going to be the final one. And yeah, it was under a cover. It was clearly a Dodge Challenger. Technically, they haven't revealed whether it's a Charger or a Challenger, but the vehicle under the cover was clearly shaped like a Dodge Challenger. And it had the license plate 1 Fast 29. So is it 29? 1 Fast 29. What is 2.90 to 60? honestly, that seems a little, I hate to say it, that seems a little slow if you're talking about some monstrous performance vehicle that in theory is supposed to run at the drag strip and run on E85 and on all kinds of different tunes. I've seen some people theorize that it's a reference to like an old Mopar performance order code from way back in the 60s. Yeah, all kinds of weird stuff. Stay tuned.
I can talk more about this next week.
Yeah.
Next week we can really have a deep discussion about this car because I can
next,
tell you
that's right.
There are some things worth discussing.
Ooh, okay. Bruce, now we need to fast forward to next week, and that'll be on the live show too. And if we have the guests, that I think we're going to have, and I think we will, it'll be a good discussion.
Yeah, it will be.
It'll be a good discussion.
Fingers crossed. So, getting guests together has been complicated.
It can be difficult sometimes, but stay tuned. More last call stuff to come. In the meantime, what do you think is going on? Email us podcast@motor1.com with your crazy, wild last call theories. This is going to be a Dodge Challenger with 1,600 horsepower tuned to run on nitro jet turbine fuel that will then bump it up if you get the special crate chip package to 8,228 horsepower. If you divide that by 4, then square root it by 18, you'll actually get back to that 1,538 thing that the Demon Leprechaun was blowing. I'm totally pulling this out of my backside, but that's the whole point. Email us podcast@motor1.com. Always comment on our articles that go up every Friday on motor1.com. Always comment on YouTube. Motor One Podcast is our YouTube channel. And then next week, we'll have the live show on Motor1.com YouTube channel. So if you're not following both, you better follow both right now. But we've got more to talk about today.
We do. We got 2 more topics and maybe some other stuff depending on how time goes. But vehicle debuted this week, the Mercedes-Benz GLC Coupe. I had to look back. I did not realize that the standard GLC debuted June of last year.
It was.
Do we really usually wait this long between standard and coupe versions of Mercedes? Isn't it usually quicker than this?
If you ask my wife, the answer is yes, absolutely, because I was kind of, I'll have to admit, I was ranting a little bit writing this on Monday. I think I was writing it up because it's just like I'm trying to write this up, and it's the standard GLC in coupe form. I mean that's really the meat of what's going on here.
There are a couple,
and it's like, why did they wait so long? I don't understand why there was such a long wait between the coupe and the standard version.
I swear it's usually sometimes 2 months, right. When they've done the refreshes, they've revealed them both at the same time before.
Right. This is, it's kind of strange because, okay, with this amount of time, you're expecting, maybe a little bit more. And it's not really there. It's the new Mercedes GLC Coupe 2024 model. It debuts in just one version. It's the 300 4MATIC mild hybrid.
Right.
AMG models will come. We have seen those, prototypes still wearing camouflage. So there will be other versions. But right now, after nearly a year between the standard GLC, you get just the GLC Coupe 300 4MATIC. So it's all-wheel drive. All of them have the AMG line package as standard. So that's an option on the standard GLC. So they're all going to have sort of that spiffy kind of Mercedes star grille where it just has all the little 3-pointed stars on the grille. So you're going to get the 19-inch wheels, 20-inch wheels are optional. The interior is the spiffed up interior with leather everywhere, some Alcantara, heated seats. Everything.
This tricolor interior does nothing for me. This tan, black, and kind of dark gray. Two-tone, I think, would be fine if it was just tan and dark gray or tan and black. But the extra dark gray on the dashboard is
I would really love to see that in person because I understand what you're saying. It's I think it's a neat combination, but to me, when I look at that picture, it looks like the gray is just like on the center console and the dash, it just looks like a sea of bright plastic. And
Wow, I didn't get that so
I don't
much.
think that's the
Okay, yeah.
case. I don't think
No,
that's
I
the
don't think so.
case, but it just that's this is one of the times where I really want to see this in person to see what that's like. But I mean, the
It just looks so
interior,
busy, I think, because of all the colors. I think if
it's
you
very busy. It
two-tone,
is
I
very
think would be
busy.
fine, but this doesn't. Yeah.
Mhm.
Anyway, continue.
It Yep, it is very busy, but I mean, if you go back to last year, it is the standard GLC inside.
Sure.
It's got the big what display is that here? I thought I had it written down on my cheat sheet. I think it's a 12.3-inch
Yeah.
display. I think in there.
Driver display is 12.3, and
Driver
then the
display is
infotainment screen is
12.3.
11.9.
Okay, and yeah, the driver display is mounted landscape style. The center display is mounted portrait style. I mean, you get kind of that offset going there. It is a little bit larger than the outgoing GLC Coupe, and by little bits, I mean it is
It's like an inch.
1.2 inches longer.
Yeah.
It is 1/4 of an inch higher.
Oh boy.
And at the back, it is almost 1 inch wider. At the front, it's a 1/4 inch wider. So, yeah, it is. It is just very, very much a little bit wider. But I mean, the proportions on the outside. I mean, everything from basically the rear doors forward is standard GLC. So I mean, you know how that's going to look. But with the back, with the coupe design, I think that just looks wise, I think the proportions are a little bit better. I think it's a little more in harmony. There's 19.2 cubic feet of storage behind the back seats. That's a little bit more than you had before. 52.6 cubic feet if you fold the seats down. Also a little bit more than you had before. It does come standard with a lot of extra equipment than what you had before. I mean, aside from the
Sure.
various driver assist, I think I mentioned like the heated seats all the way around. 360-degree camera is standard on this. And it does have an off-road mode with what they call a transparent hood setup, where you basically have a big picture displayed on your center screen that looks basically underneath the front wheels ahead of the car. It's as if you were looking down right at the ground in front of you, and there was no hood there. You could see right through. So if
Mhm.
you're off-roading, and I
So
don't know how many are going
you're
to off-road with this, but
you're gonna make fun of this, but we actually have that in our Subaru. And you know what? It's fantastic for my wife for pulling into the garage so she doesn't hit the trash cans.
that's true. Okay, there you go.
It's not the intended use of that function, but
Well,
it
I
is
mean,
a
it's
use. You
yeah, I
know,
mean, it's a use. The whole point is okay, visibility around the car.
right,
I mean, I could see that being extremely useful if you're trying to pull into a parking space and you
right.
can't
That's
quite
the,
see
she is
where the
also.
lines
We
are.
have both actually used it for that.
You,
Is
you
you
can
hit the
see where the
button and
lines are. You can get yourself lined up. I mean, Mercedes paints this as, yeah, when you're crawling down,
no one's gonna do
when
that
you're
in this
crawling,
thing.
when you're crawling down Hell's Gate in Moab, right? You can look down through your transparent hood on your Mercedes GLC Coupe and see where you're going. Maybe,
No. Yeah. Yes.
maybe you could, but I mean, but yeah, you're right. It's a neat function there. Um, but aside from that, I mean, the powertrain, it's just the one powertrain here, which, to refresh your memory, it's a 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder mild hybrid. It has 255 horsepower, all total, 295 pound-feet of torque. It is a mild hybrid, so it doesn't run on its own, on electricity alone. But that's the combined output going to all four wheels. 0 to 60 is like 6.3 seconds. It's the same as you would get with a standard GLC, just
Yep.
with a different backside.
And like you said, we know more engines are coming. We know an
Yes,
AMG's version's coming. I'm pretty sure we've seen spy shots of a plug-in hybrid. I want to say, um,
I believe we have.
I think
Um,
so. I mean, basically, this is
mhm,
they're starting here, and more are going to come. So
right. It
if
just,
this doesn't necessarily excite you, just wait.
I mean, this just, I guess when the information came in, I mean, I didn't look at it right away, and
Mhm.
I wanted to write this so I could talk about it here on the podcast, so I would have some good knowledge. And I was a bit surprised because Bruce, here's a little bit of inside baseball.
Okay.
Mercedes, you know, if you at all have done anything with automotive journalism, Mercedes is pretty fond of putting out some very, how do I say, detailed press releases.
Let's just call it what it. I have seen a 20-page Mercedes-Benz press release does not surprise me anymore because I've seen
Right.
so many of them.
Right. So I sat down expecting, okay, this is going to be a while. I want to make sure I pull out all the information. Because I mean, it's been almost a year since the standard GLC. They must be doing some fairly substantial things different with this. I mean, I figured, design wise, it's still going to look the same. But then once I got into the meat of it, it's like, wow, okay, just the one model, the 304 Matic with the one engine option. And I mean, truth be told, a lot of the stuff that is standard here is still available on the other GLC. It's just
Just
an
optional.
option in some case. So, yeah, we don't have any pricing for this yet, but we do know Mercedes says it will go on sale later in 2023. And yeah, we do know that there's an AMG version that'll follow. That's still being tested. We're still seeing those in spy photos in prototype form on the road. So yeah, the 2024 Mercedes-Benz GLC Coupe. I do think I will say this. It does look better, I think, than the outgoing model. I think
I
the
agree.
proportions are they're just better. It's just still mystifies me as to why they took so long to bring out the coupe version.
Yeah. I don't know, but it's interesting. I got nothing. I got nothing.
Well,
here.
well, then let's talk about something else that's mystifying.
Okay.
If hypothetically, if you are experiencing flooding conditions, say you're trying to patch a spot in a levee, perhaps, would you use a pickup truck to fix it? Now, I don't mean no wait, I don't mean would you use a pickup truck to haul material to the levee to fix it? I mean, would you drive your Chevy to the levee and then drive it into the levee to fix it? That's a thing that's kind of going viral right now. There's a video out of some flooding taking place in California. Obviously, just a terrible situation out there, and our best thoughts to everybody that might be affected. We don't mean to poke any fun at the weather situation that's going on out there.
No, we're not poking fun at all. It's more that this is a fascinating and intriguing solution to an emergency situation.
And it's one that worked too, if I understand correctly. Is that right?
At least
Tell us
so
about
far. It worked, yes. And so we should explain here. This someone on Twitter, his @ is AG Leader. He goes by Cannon Michael. He is a farmer, and this was sent from a friend of his. And these farmers, they have an orchard, and their levee broke, literally. A local lake is starting to flood, and they are nearby that. And you can see in this first image up here that the levee is broken. There's already a Ford F-150, or I think it's Ford F-150 on the right that's buried in the mud.
Yep.
And if you watch the video, which we're not going to show because last week we had some copyright issues for stupid reasons
that we got taken care of. We got that taken care of, and we were in the right.
It still aggravated the hell out of me. In the video, the guy, plants the throttle on the Chevy, gets out of it, throws it into the hole in the levee. You can see they're both loaded with dirt.
Yep.
And then from there, we don't have this on video, but we know from the description of what happened, they packed more dirt in around them and filled the levee. And you can see it here. Like it totally works. These guys, there's another image here of the orchard now, and it's clearly muddy. It's clearly somewhat flooded, but
there's muddy and some standing water. But
if you look at the level of the water on one side versus the other side, that it worked. And so, and it's
I
just
mean,
fascinating because who would think to do that? And I guess, clearly their orchard was on the line. Like if this amount of water flooded into it,
mhm.
and so you got to do what you got to do. And as I pointed out in the story, in the video, you can see how fast the water is rushing in. So if you had just taken this amount of dirt and dumped it in, a lot of it would have just washed into the
It would have
orchard. It would
just
have been
washed the dirt out.
pointless.
Yep.
But by putting the trucks in there, they essentially created something for all that material to hang on to. And so
Mhm.
they were, put the trucks in and then dump dirt around them. And you can see
It worked.
yeah, it
I mean, it worked. There's no other way to say it. It worked. And from what I understand, I mean, this isn't going to be a case of, okay, later on, they're going to claim, oh, our trucks were flooded at, from what I understand, I mean, this is something that, hey, you know what? We need to get this taken care of. These trucks are expendable. The silver one does look to me like it's a Ford. It looks like all you can really see, you can see the silver bed, a little bit of the roof.
you can see 4x4
And you see a 4x4
tiny
decal,
little bit of the
and
tail light.
it looks like a Ford. It looks like a Ford Super Cab. Both trucks are loaded to the hilt with dirt in the bed.
Right.
And the Ford is driven right up to the edge of where this broken levee is. And then, yeah, the video shows I guess they put like a brick or something on the accelerator. The guy jumps out, reaches in, puts it in gear, and the truck takes off. And it drives itself basically right into the spot where they wanted it to go, right next to the Ford. And
which,
when
like,
I first
our boss Seth Mearsma added, good aim on that guy's part.
good aim.
That
I mean, it went right where they wanted.
There was
and when
room for error, certainly.
And when I first heard this, I thought, that's just ridiculous. Trucks aren't going to stop the water from going through. You're going to have water flowing under the trucks. You're going to have water flowing, through the trucks. It's not like they're watertight. But then, I mean, and I'm glad you noted this in the story, having those two vehicles there to catch material, to catch dirt that's then put in. I mean, that was key. You weren't going to just go up to that and drop in a bunch of dirt. It would have just been washed away.
Right.
I mean, there was a bunch of dirt there to start with, and it was washed away.
It washed away the dirt that was there. So adding more wasn't going to solve the problem. They needed it. You almost think of it as like a coral reef or something where they sink something down and then build around it.
Right.
That it's basically the same concept of
something
there that's structural that'll hold it, and then filling in material around it to pack it in.
And I mean, neither one of these trucks were new trucks by any means.
No,
I mean, the Chevy probably. I mean, I didn't get a really good look at it, but
see it here, it's not. That's Silverado.
I mean, that's probably what, like maybe a mid 2000s Silverado. Somewhere around there.
So maybe in the 2010s, maybe.
A mid 2000s, and then from what I could see on the side of that other truck, if that is
that
a
one's
Ford,
much harder to tell,
and I'm pretty sure it is. That looks like it's probably from the same era. It's harder to pin that down with just what we see, but I mean, in theory, then I mean, we could be talking about. I mean, if you were to value, I mean, depending on their condition, maybe $10,000 a piece. So, I mean, $20,000 worth of truck to jump in there,
and you can see the size of this orchard. They save
this big orchard
way more than $20,000 of produce.
And they say they're gonna dig these back out then later on.
Right. Once the water recedes, the plan is to dig them back out. And like I put in the story, I want someone, whether it's a Vice Grip garage or one of the YouTubers that go and find wrecked cars and get them running.
I bought the cheapest insert vehicle here.
Exactly.
Right?
I want one of those guys to go once these things are out of the mud and just try to get it started again. Like, it's probably not going to happen, but
they're getting all kinds of press right now. We certainly weren't the only ones to cover this.
Sure.
And the videos are viral at this point. The video is viral. So there are certainly people out there that are aware of what's going on here. Even if they pull the trucks out, get them cleaned out, and get them to run again. I mean, if you're using them on an orchard, if they're just literally like farm trucks, it might not be that difficult to just fish them out of the water, get them all dried out, replace a few things, and keep using them. Or yeah, pull them out, advertise them for exactly what they are. These are the trucks that saved our orchard. I mean, we didn't talk about this before podcast, but there was the first gen Acura NSX that just
Oh,
made
yeah.
the rounds this week.
Yep.
That was under the water of a river in North Carolina for 15 years.
Yep. You did a good job on that story, by the way.
Yeah, I was able to reach out to some people. I got a hold of the place that sold it. I was able to chat with the new owner. It was under the water for 15 years. And it was sold to its new owner for $8,500. That person has a shop in Maryland, and they know the NSX really well, and they're going to attempt to restore it. It's been underwater for 15 years. When you look at it, it just looks like it went through the apocalypse and did not survive.
Well,
It's not a survivor.
No. But I thought it was hilarious. The story, they found it by accident when looking for, was it a car from a murder scene? And they found this instead?
There was a missing persons case in this that ended up pointing to another car in this river. And when they found that car in the river to solve this missing persons case, the NSX was found in there as well, and it's believed the car was stolen and dumped in the river at some point in the early 2000s. And the engine is still with the car. It was fished out in 2019, so it wasn't fished out yesterday. It was fished out in 2019. Apparently, the person that initially got it, they had it for a couple of years to, I guess, figure out what they wanted to do with it. Then they just ended up selling it. Supposedly it's a complete car. Obviously you're not going to use anything left in it.
No.
But I mean, it's an NSX, so it's an aluminum body.
Right.
They're going to try to restore it. At worst, they're going to try to turn it just into a track car if they can't get it certified for road use.
Well, I'm honestly, at worst, it's a decent piece of kind of found art in its own certain way of like
$8,500, like put it on your lawn,
or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, but when you look at it, it's pretty straight. The A pillar on the passenger side is all kinked up. That's going to need some work. But other than that, it's a fairly straight car. You gut it all down, clean out the metal that you can. Obviously, everything for the interior will need to be replaced. The wiring.
Well, here we're looking at the engine bay, quote unquote, with just mud.
It's just sand.
Yeah.
There's just sand. It's just sand in there. That's it.
So
that's it. But hey, lots of underwater cars this week, huh?
Yeah. Let me do a time check here. Okay, you know what? Let's read some comments. We got just a few minutes here.
Okay, yeah, let's go
comments.
Go through some comments. We had some YouTube comments here. We missed your email, so email us podcast@motor1.com. Do you want to grab one, Bruce, or do you want me to go here?
Nope, I got one here. So this is from J Maxwell 5314. And I should say, sorry. So this comment, as I am reading it now, came in 3 hours ago. However, so Smith and I, when we are writing news stories for motor1.com, if it applies to the topic, we'll oftentimes put in older episodes of Rambling About Cars because it's a good way to get the audience, get an audience to see the show. So if they missed it live or they missed it that Friday, a lot of the times we talk about kind of evergreen type content, and so it makes sense to kind of re-promote those things. And this is exactly a case of that. So this is when we had Tom Bologna on to talk electric pickup trucks, the Corvette E-Ray, and the North American Car Truck Utility of the Year winner. So that would put it early-ish January. And the comment is, the guest is fantastic. He should be helping the government to stop screwing up EV policy. So we will pass that info along to Tom. I'm sure he would love to help the government stop screwing up EV policy.
Absolutely.
Because he would be fantastic at that job.
Well, he's been in the EV realm long before EVs were really coming on strong.
Yes.
I have to this day, I've not met a person more knowledgeable
Same.
on just everything EV, from vehicles to the plugs to charging to getting the most out of them. It's like any other vehicle. You can just jump into it, drive it, go. It'll do that. It's not
Mhm.
necessarily going to give you everything that it can. And he is just an absolute expert on all of those things. We've had him on our show twice. He's a contributor over at um, our EV friends at Inside EVs. We're all part
Mhm.
of the Motorsport Network. He's a writer over there, and I know he does a lot with the Inside EVs podcast,
Mhm.
which you should also watch and listen to on Fridays. That's a very good podcast. So yeah, thank you very much for that comment. Now, um, the same person also commented on another video. This is a few hours later than the one you just read, Bruce, and this goes back to episode 105. Again, where we're talking about the Ram, more electric stuff, the Ram Revolution, EV concept. I think we had some Volkswagen talk in there,
Mhm. And
some
CES.
CES content. So that was right after the first of the year. And his comments is about the Ram Revolution, about the Ram jump seats in particular, about the Ram jump seat idea. Maybe a truck could do a third row fold down bench seat, maybe removable with a 60-40 split. That way you could also utilize the seat as a shelf in the back.
Not a terrible idea,
Not a
honestly.
terrible idea. I wonder. uh, I mean, the jump seats are there just because I mean, it's a big cab already.
Mhm.
But if you try to stretch it out for, I think, a third row, I mean, that would be just a terrifically big cab, but it's a good idea.
I'm
Um,
honestly
I'm
surprised.
trying to think of how. See, this is how my mind works. Right now, I'm trying to solve the problem, and it's just like, yeah,
Well, I mean,
you
the
know,
answer is you just enlarge the cab.
right. You just make a
You
bigger cab,
you
so
make a
you have an
bigger cab and
SUV
maybe
basically.
eat a little bit on the bed, and there you go. Which what I was about to say. I'm surprised we haven't actually seen an automaker try that. Given the popularity of three-row vehicles, given the popularity of pickup trucks, I'm surprised we haven't seen a pickup truck maker try to do a three-row model.
Well, we've seen aftermarket companies do it.
Yes, we have. That's
I'm
absolutely true.
trying to think. I can't think of the specific one off the top of my head, but it's like they did like an F-250 Ford Raptor conversion. Like if you
Yep.
wanted a big F-250 Raptor, and then they put a third row basically in the bed.
Right. You're right. I forgot about that. And there have been other
Mhm.
aftermarket companies doing that. So I guess there is a niche desire for that type of thing. Huh. Yeah.
I mean, I guess if you did like just a really small third row, sort of like if you remember, I don't know, Bruce, if you remember like the older like the Ford Super Cabs or the Chevy Super Cabs, and I think even Dodge had it in their club cab, where I mean it's just there's a really small bench seat behind the two front seats
Yes.
that could fold up. It wouldn't fold down; it would fold up and just give you more space back there.
Hmm.
And they were just, I mean, they were small seats.
Yes.
They
It was
weren't really
essentially,
meant.
as I recall, you essentially had to sit sideways. It
Yeah,
was
I mean, they weren't very comfortable for anybody of adult stature for any
right.
length of time, really. Um, but if you had something like that behind a second row of seats, where the top where it could either fold up for storage, or
Hmm.
maybe the back could then fold down for like another shelf. I don't know. Maybe something like that could work.
Hmm.
I'll leave that for the engineers. I just write and talk.
That
That's
same
about
here.
all I can do.
Well, let's wrap up, but let's promote the live show one last time.
One
Motor
more
One
time.
Motor One Podcast. We really want this to be really fun and cool, and I'm looking forward to this change of the show. And like Smith said, it's not that we might never do recorded episodes again, but going forward, this is certainly going to be the primary format. And we want to launch it in a big way. So
Mhm.
please, if you are a frequent listener, please come join us 7:30 p.m. Eastern time, not 1:30, 4:30 p.m. Pacific time
On
on
Wednesday.
Wednesday, March 22nd.
Wednesday, March 22nd. We do have some guests in the works. One is confirmed. I
One is
believe
confirmed.
I just want to make sure I don't want to set that in stone just in case something happens. But it's a return guest, who was also the guest on one of our most popular recordings since we've been doing rambling about cars.
Mhm,
So if you are a frequent listener, maybe you know who that is. We'll spring it on you next week.
mhm,
Um, and he is going to be just, I mean, that'll be a great discussion. And we're working on some other guests to try to spin it into something even bigger that could relate to 80s, 90s car culture. Maybe, I don't know. That's
we'll
what we're aiming
see.
for. That's what we're
Yeah,
aiming for.
yeah,
But there's going to be such good conversation, such
totally.
great car talk, and we really want you to be a part of it. So again, follow Motor One on Facebook, Motor One Com. Follow Motor One on Twitter, Motor One Com. Follow Motor One Com YouTube channel. You can comment as we're recording right there and join us real time. And we
Mhm,
really look forward to seeing you.
totally. And with that, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. We appreciate all of our listeners and all of our commenters and all of our emailers and everything. Anyone who decides to spend time with us, we appreciate that you gave us that amount of your time. So thank you very much. And with that, we look forward to seeing you next week. Bye
Going
bye.
live. Bye bye, everybody.